What is going on, guys? Welcome to another video. Now, it's been roughly about 11 days since I posted an aim analyst review video where I told everybody on my social medias and messaged out to all my viewers and community to say, hey, send me your aim settings, let me review them, let me see if I can provide feedback to make that settings better. Since I received a lot of good positive feedback from the community saying to make this an ongoing video series, that's what I'm going to do. I am going to be giving about 1 to 2 examples per video series just because I want to pay good attention to each detail that each player sends in. That way I can provide good positive feedback, or if it's perfect the way it is, I'll let you know and still try out and test the aim myself. So if you want to have your aim settings reviewed, just send them in and hopefully you'll be in the next video. All right. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Pure Noble. I'm just a fellow Call of Duty player that likes to nerd out on everything Call of Duty related. We talk about the season changes. We talk about Call of Duty news. We talk about weapon balancing. We talk about the new weapon reviews. We talk about tips and tricks here and there that I learned as a Call of Duty player that I hope that I can instill to all new Call of Duty players out there that are just coming onto the scene. But if anything, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Keep killing it out there. All right, so starting with the first aim settings out of the 2 that a player had sent in, this is going to be his aim settings. Vertical is at 1.6, horizontal is at 1.6, ADS sensitivity multiplier at 1, aim response curve is dynamic, and his dead zones is going to be left minimum 1, max 60, right minimum 1, max 96. Let's talk about it. So when you look at these overall settings, it looks fairly normal, right? The 1.6 horizontal and vertical, that's not too slow, that's not too fast. I think that's a very good pace. I believe a lot of pros, they stay within about 1.4 to 1.8. They don't decide to go anything higher. Your ADS sensitivity multiplier looks standard, the aim response curve looks standard with dynamic. But the main thing I want to pull from your settings, and I really enjoyed, is that you decided to take your left dead zone minimum 1 and your max, instead of keeping it at high 90s or high 100s, you really brought it down to 60. Now let me tell you guys, for the rest of the viewers, why this is very important. Now, as a controller player, it's very important that you utilize all the tools that you have being a controller player. So that means you're utilizing both aim assist and rotational aim assist. When you think of your left stick, what does your left stick mainly control? Movement, right? With rotational aim assist, in order to have that constantly in effect, you have to keep your movement constant. In order to get that max input on movement, you have to get there quickly. In order to do that quickly, you lower your max deads down lower. The quickest and simplest way to explain dead zones without making this a full video is that your minimum is the amount of pressure that you push on the sticks in order to start the input in the game, while your max dead zone settings is the amount that you're gonna press to get 100% input. So with the max dead zone being lowered to 60, what that means is instead of this player having to press the sticks 100% in one way to get the max input, they only have to press 60. So for example's sake, right, if you feel like you're a player that needs to whip their analog all the way 100% in order to start that max movement, and you don't like doing that, you don't like having to whip it left, whip it right, or whatever, bringing it down to 60, that means you only have to move it 60% and you're already getting max input rather than having to hit the end of it. And that's the most that I'm going to explain with dead zones, guys. If you do want to get a more detailed explanation of dead zones, I do have a video that I already uploaded in my aim and movement tips category. You are going to see that video upload. All right, so we're in a private match, right? I'm testing out player 1's settings. Now take note, this is always my disclaimer, is that I am always playing on a different setting, right? My muscle memory is still used to the one that I'm using. So every time that I test something, take my advice or input with a grain of salt, just because I'm not used to the settings that I am trying out. So the 1.6 on the vertical and horizontal is totally fine. My recommendation, and I said this in the previous video, is that try to make your horizontal a little bit faster than your vertical. Or if anything, if your horizontal is fine, make your vertical lower. Reason being is because majority of the time you are moving left and right like this. You don't need the speed going up. One thing that is going to help slightly with your aim when you're trying to look up or down, because sometimes if the aim is too fast on the left and right, it's definitely too fast trying to control on your verticals going up and down. So if you feel like when you're trying to aim at the top and you're overshooting on your target, then lower your vertical. Your vertical does not need to be the same speed as your horizontal. And then since you did mention that you do have an issue with centering, now centering doesn't specifically account for your aim settings, right? There's no specific aim setting that is going to help your centering. One thing that is going to help your centering that you need to be mindful of is how you're moving about the map. So for example, centering, right? Always making sure that you're getting close to the target as possible. Every time that you're coming down a path. So for example, if you're coming around the corner, right? That's your angle. Why? Because most players are going to stay at that angle. If you're coming through the door, why are you looking here? Because your main player walk path is going to be through here because their spawn point is this end. If you're about to cross the corner of this bus, right? There's a possibility it's going to be here, maybe over here. If you're coming on this side, it's over there. You always want to predict where the players are coming, because if you know your run routes, if you know the doorways and hallways, you're always going to have your aim centered around that position. And this is what I mean about having that lower left dead zone is very important. It's literally this right here, to be able to trigger your movement as quick as possible. If you kept your max dead zone to be 100, like I said, you'd have to snap your sticks before you get that max hit point. But because he brought it down to 60, he doesn't have to snap it all the way. He can just push it slightly and he's already getting that max push. The sooner you get your max push, the sooner your rotational aim assist starts. That's the main reason why I think is important to have a lower left dead zone max. But other than that, man, it's a really good setting. I know this is very similar to the setting that I used to play on when I used to run dynamic. All right, moving on to example number 2, we got this player using at vertical and horizontal both being at 2.8, very high in my opinion. We got the ADS sense at 0.87, aim curve linear, dead zones being left at 2, lower 70, so he understands why the left dead zone needs to be low, and right being at 299. Now you notice I named the title of this aim setting playing on hard mode question mark, and it's very impressive. Now the reason why I say it's hard mode is because it's a very high sensitivity, and even with the ADS sense being at 0.87, that's still kind of high. Most times players who run very high sense will have very low ADS sense, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to practice their snaps. In order for them to counter the high sensitivity, to make sure that they don't lose precision when they aim, they make their ADS sense low. So that's why I said this guy is playing on hard mode, and if he's doing fairly well, so not only he has fast sensitivity, his ADS is not even slowed down by much. You're going from 1.0 to 0.87, and then he also has aim curve response being at linear, so he has to control the raw input of his exact thumbstick pressures. Trying to control the amount of pressure that you need to push on a stick on a very high sense is very hard to do for a lot of players. And that's why I put in parentheses it's impressive, because if you are performing very well with these settings, that's really good. But if you sent these settings as if like, hey, these are my current settings right now and I'm doing horrible, such as I'm having a hard time tracing, I'm having a hard time with controlling my aim, I'm having a hard time with overshooting or undershooting the target, it's probably because you don't understand the raw input that you need to push on your thumbs, and you have super high sensitivity. I've had conversations with other players where they've just heard from a streamer or a content creator to run max sensitivity, to run high 2020 when it was 2020 back then, and they wonder why their aim is being thrown off and they have a hard time tracing targets because they're either overshooting, it's most times overshooting, is because their sensitivity is so damn high. What I would do is I'll take that 2.8, bring it down to 2.0, bring my vertical even lower, instead of 2.0, maybe 1.9, 1.8, just slightly slower than your horizontal like I explained. And then at that point, you can keep your ADS sense the same at 0.87, because your slowness of your ADS sense matches closer to what you're putting on your sensitivities being at 2.0. Dead zones also look fine to me, and I'm glad that you're running linear, because that means you're trying to understand and practice raw input rather than having that acceleration that dynamic usually gives you. So horizontal really fast, you know, compared to what I'm used to, so very, very fast. And if your vertical being just as fast, I find it very impressive that you can use your vertical sensitivity being as high as it is, you can whip to your second story window with precision. I'm trying to like land on it without overshooting the window, and like for me not being used to the 2.8, right, I'm overshooting. I'm either going too high, I'm hitting too low, like even trying to come back down to the doorway, look, I'm hitting the ground. If I move up, then I move down, I'm trying to center myself. So if you are running sensitivities that high and you are having the same issues that I'm having right now, right, I would say bring down your sensitivities, bring it low, have more control. That way you can land correctly and center where you're supposed to center accurately. One recommendation that I could offer is that if you want to keep your ADS sense high and you want to take advantage of your slow ADS, say bring it down to 0.50, to top it off, you can actually switch to dynamic and try that out, because dynamic is going to slow you down at the end of your aim. So on top of the 0.50 ADS, you're going to have additional slowdown with dynamic, but still have that accelerated initial speed in your aim. But hey, if using these settings right now as is and you're doing very well and you just wanted feedback on it, hey, I'm very impressed. Keep doing you, brother. And those are the two settings that I reviewed for this video. Remember, this is going to be an ongoing series, so if you do want to have your aim settings analyzed and reviewed, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. I might be able to pick those, or if anything, send it through any of my socials. The DMs are open. And that's all we're going to have for this video, folks. If this video gave you any additional insight and context that you did enjoy, that gave you value, please drop a like on the video. It helps it tremendously in the algorithm. And if you enjoy the content overall and you also want to nerd out with Call of Duty with me, please drop a sub to the channel. We'd love to see you here for the next video, okay? But as always, stay pure, stay noble, and hashtag bring back honest gaming. Later, guys.